Welcome, everyone. Very excited about this session. And we're going to do a few of these where I'm going to bug each of you here from our fractional CTO community to give your thoughts on what AI on the cutting edge is like for them in that week. I think we're down to the week now. Um, so we'll kick off with Kathy Yu in this shared session. Kathy Keating is one of our earliest members of the community. She's a CTO advisor, executive coach, a board director who helps companies navigate growth, leadership transitions, and turnarounds. She has co-created the CTO Levels and co-authored this book, which was a joy to read. Uh,
Thank you.
and we've recently had the pleasure of also working with her for one of our PE-backed clients. And with that, Kathy, the mic is all yours. If I could, I would physically give you this, but sorry.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me. You're my second talk today, so maybe I'm on a roll. I don't know. We'll see. All right. I'll give my talk and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. But if you have a burning thing you want to disagree with me about, please just raise your
No,
hand
no, no,
and let
no,
me
no,
talk.
no, don't do that because then what happens is that two people are talking and we don't get to go through your entire
That
talk.
sounds
So
great. All right.
I guess
Hold
I
it
just
till the
disagreed
end.
with you right there.
Hold it till the
Anyway,
end. All right.
okay, take notes.
All right, so I want to start with something we all know by heart. The first value of the Agile Manifesto, individuals and interactions over processes and documentation. Every one of us, we've built our career on the principle, and for about the last 20, almost 25 years, that principle was right. We optimized for conversations, for whiteboard sessions, stand-ups, hallway debates. We told our teams that talking it through was better than writing it down. And we said that the best requirements emerged through dialogue, not documents. And we were right because we're optimizing for that human to human connection. And humans collaborate best through dialogue and conversation. So the question I want to ponder today is what happens when the most powerful individual on your team can only interact through what you've written down? AI doesn't sit in your stand up. It doesn't absorb the context from, the coffee room, right? It doesn't overhear a debate in the product meeting. It doesn't pick your company culture up through osmosis. It doesn't learn what good looks like by watching your senior engineers work. It reads what you give it. And if what you give it is vague, unstructured, and improvised, that's exactly what you're going to get back at extraordinary speed. So we've spent 20 years optimizing our processes for this human to human connection. But now the most powerful collaborator on our team isn't human, and its interface is the written word. So every business operates on an operating system. And I don't mean the software kind of operating system. I mean the collection of frameworks, standards, design principles, and decisions you make that govern exactly how you work. You have a process. That's an operating system. You might even call that process chaos. I don't have a process. Well, you do have a process. It might just be chaos. Your software development lifecycle is an operating system. It's what keeps your technology aligned, moving predictably, not boiling over. How your service team operates, your service design, it's an operating system. Your architectural standards, coding conventions, product development, it's all operating systems. So if you've ever worked in a hyper growth company, I think many of us have. You know what happens when a company hits that growth inflection point, and their operating systems aren't codified. It's only in people's heads, it's tribal knowledge, everyone's going different directions, and it's all been done in hallway conversations. And so that institutional memory walks out the door every time someone leaves. And if you're trying to get into hyper growth, how do you capture that? What really happens, right? So we've seen how fast and spectacularly things can go off the rails. Requirements get lost. They were communicated verbally. Nobody wrote it down. Teams build the wrong thing. because the vision is only in someone's head or it wasn't written down or it's fuzzy, people talking past each other. All of this instability, the gap between how fast the company is moving and how well the operating systems of your business are codified, that determines whether your hyper growth company is a success story or a cautionary tale, right? So how well you navigate that with your systems is really important. We've all seen that movie. I'm a turnaround expert. I get brought into turnarounds all the time. And imagine now multiplying that chaos by 5, 10, 20x because of the speed of AI. So one of the most powerful contributors in our organization, the AI, doesn't understand our operating systems. Not because it can't, but because we haven't taken the time to codify them, write them down in a way that the AI can actually consume it because it interacts with us through writing. So now you've got the most capable, fastest tool or individual, I'll put that in quotes, you've ever had access to running around without clear direction. And I call that not acceleration, I call that accelerated drift. More output, more velocity, less coherence. And the drift compounds at a rate that we've never experienced before. I'm going to pull a stat from a recent Circle CI productivity report from earlier this year. Um, engineering teams they claim from their data, engineering teams are operating about 59% faster, delivering 59% faster, but quality's dropped more than 20%. That's accelerated drift, right? If we're going to deliver faster, we should be delivering the same quality. That's the goal here, right? But if we're moving so fast that quality is getting compromised, we're drifting away from where our operating systems, our values, our principles are guiding us. Um, Now, the answer to this isn't write down more documentation. Nobody in this room wants to hear it. And honestly, I think it'd be the wrong advice. This is not about going back to waterfall. It's not about thick requirement docs that nobody reads. This is about understanding the nature of our frameworks and how do we codify our processes, our operating systems in a way that the AI can consume them. So when we codify those standards, AI can follow them. When we codify our design system, AI can build with it. When we codify our service blueprint, AI helps us implement and evolve how our service organization works. Same thing for architectural patterns. How do we write our code, right? The more we codify this in a way that the AI can understand it, the less accelerated drift we'll have, right? So our frameworks are no longer just reference documents that sit in a wiki that nobody reads. They're actually becoming core to how our operating system works. So no longer documentations that sit on the shelf. They are actually core, living, breathing ways in which we communicate. So to that AI. They're an interface layer between the human who has the strategic intent and the AI, which has the execution capability. So without these operating systems, we're essentially having a conversation with a very fast, very eager contributor who has zero context about our business, our customers, our strategy, and our constraints. And that contributor will happily produce enormous volumes of confident, well-structured, strategically misaligned work. So here's what I believe about who thrives through this AI adoption curve, because I think it matters for us, especially as fractionals, to be thinking about this. It's not enough to be a systems thinker. Most of us here probably consider ourselves that. The differentiation isn't that we can think in systems, it's whether we can externalize our systems into clear, consistent, coherent frameworks that exist outside of our head. Frameworks that AI can operate with on. The guardrails that we can put in the system so the drift doesn't happen. Frameworks have to scale beyond us. So for 20 years with Agile, we've held the operating systems in our heads and we've transmitted it through conversations, stand-ups, one-on-ones, whiteboard sessions, because we had the luxury of time. We could be the person who just knew things, how things should work, and communicate it through our presence and our dialogue. But that era is ending. What we used to do in 3 weeks, we can do in 3 hours now. The gap, the drag, the ability to react and adapt is like compressing, right? So if it's only in our heads, we're losing that amount of time to adapt and iterate. We're still iterating, we're just iterating really fast. And as humans, we can't like pull those frameworks up and make the decisions fast enough for the AI. So the shift isn't from being doers to system thinkers. I think it's from being thinkers to better writers. From leaders who hold systems in their heads to leaders who codify systems into our infrastructure. And I believe that the ones who make the transition the best are the ones who know how to make this particular shift. The ones who don't want to still be the smartest person in the room who continues to communicate clearly. So I'm going to use an example. This is the project that Manon and Tintash and I just did. So I'm just going to pull some examples from that. I just wrapped up a service design engagement that illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. The team was building a new service, smart people, good intentions. They were doing everything they've been trained to do. They were iterating, making tactical changes, responding to roadblocks, and shipping and improving. But they were meandering through the project, a little lost. Delivering a great service is fundamentally about how the customer experiences your service. That's the anchor. Without a codified framework for how we deliver our service to our customers, without the operating system being defined, they were solving tactical problems really well, but they were kind of getting lost. They were drifting. So this is a classic accelerated shift. We're busy, we're shipping, but we're not getting exactly where we want to get to, right? So stepped back, started to build an operating system for the service, fully strategic service design. And it's not just a document, it's a codified, living, breathing framework for how the service works, who it serves, what customers are going to experience with it, how the components fit together, what the design principles are. These are all the frameworks that really wrap how a service should operate to be able to deliver on your mission. So here's what happened. Typical service design engagement, a firm like McKinsey, traditionally, would have taken about 3 to 5 people about 5 months to define a service like this. We did it with me, working within the organization, partnered with Claude in about roughly 3 weeks, defining the whole service. Most of that time was stakeholder conversations. The rest of the time was working through a codified service design framework that I built into Claude to structure and put the guardrails around how do you even define a service? What does it mean? What is the framework? How do we produce it, right? So I was able to do the whole project essentially, obviously I was working with stakeholders throughout the organization, but produce the whole service design in about 3 weeks. And it's a living, breathing service design that's plugged into the AI, that they have the skill, they have the framework, and they can just talk to the computer, talk to the AI, and evolve the service from now on. They can generate new feature requests, they can generate documentation, training documentation, prioritization, task lists. They can slice and dice it every way they want, is because the infrastructure is there, not just how to do service design, but the service design, right? So it becomes this permanent executable infrastructure, and it democratizes the ability to do this kind of work away from expensive specialists and enables everyone in the organization to be able to define great services going forward. So the part that matters most, I think, about how we work is that framework is built through doing the work, not before it, right? And so used to be in waterfall, we developed the framework or the documentation before we did the work. I encourage you to think about how do you build these frameworks as you move through the work so that the next time you do this kind of work, the framework is there and then you can evolve. So we don't disappear for 3 months or 3 weeks or 3 hours and write in a vacuum. We codify as we go. Um, it's not just about writing the code or delivering on the mission, it's also about evolving the frameworks we're using to do it. So iteration needs to be not just about the work, but how we do the work going forward. So each time we cycle with the AI, we get better. And the operating systems we're using emerge through that work. Um, that's the model, not perfection up front, but progressive codification that compounds. I'm going to pull a stat, another stat I heard. This is a PE firm report. AI capabilities are 2xing every 3 months. So if we're 2xing every 3 months, who's good at math? Where are we going to be in a year and a half? I don't know. I should have done the math ahead of time. 100x from where we are today. I mean, can you even imagine what that world's going to be like? What our job is going to be like if we're 100x from where we are today with AI? Like to me, it's mind-boggling. I can't even think about it. So the longer we wait to evolve how we interact with this AI, the further and further away we're getting from that work. And the timeline is really compressed for us. So what's our path forward? So I'm not saying stop everything and spend time building a perfect operating system. That'd be waterfall thinking. Your teams are already using AI. You're already using AI. The question isn't whether we start, it's whether we're learning from interaction and progressively codifying and adopting as we go. So my encouragement to you all is to notice where the drag is today. Are you telling the AI the same thing over and over again? Well, that should be codified into a skill. Are your prompts really long? Well, maybe you should first write a brief and then that brief, use the brief to move to the next direction, right? How are you codifying as you go along? And every time the AI misses the mark, that's a signal to us. Every time your team re-explains the context, that's a signal. Every time output comes back misaligned, that's a signal. These are signals that we use to adapt and codify and grow, interact with how the AI any better, right? I hear from a lot of people that, I get what a slop out of the AI. And I'm like, I get something I barely have to edit anymore. But that's because I have built all my frameworks into my AI. It knows my voice, it knows my business, it knows my clients, it knows my frameworks. Everything is codified in. And I actually rarely have to evolve what I get back from Claude because I've built all this operating system behind the scenes to be able to interact in it. So if you're getting slot back or it's off track, like this is just a signal to you that you need to better communicate, better strengthen that human to machine interaction. And just remember, it needs it in writing. So how are you going to produce it in writing? So when we think about ourselves as fractionals, and we walk into an organization and ask, what's their operating system? How are they codifying? What's trapped in people's heads? Where's the drag? Where's the drift? These are the skills that fractionals are going to be pulling more and more and more on. I don't know if you're already seeing this, but I see it in everything. Like I have to come in and I have to say, how do I codify the operating system better so that we can get ourselves back on track? And if the most powerful member of our team can really only interact through writing it down, then I have to strengthen my ability to iterate better and better in writing to make sure that operating system is codified. And so the question is like, how well are we doing that? That's it. That's my talk. That's my thought.
Thank you so much. I saw parallels, Thanos, with what you and I were discussing and your mortal and what Kathy was saying. But thank you very much, Kathy. Who wants to go with the first question? Bye,
Um,
Sarah. It's all yours.
yeah, there you go. Right. I have to say I'm a huge Kathy fan, so
Oh,
that's one. Hello from
hi.
CTO and places. Yes, hi. Um, but the codify really means a lot of things now, right? It's not just having it written somewhere. It really involves a lot of pulling in, almost organizational change is codified, right? Like, so that in itself is a huge change. How do we codify, right? If it's no, if you no longer require things to be written down, but then how does it know? So there is, I think it's almost, you need to include it into everything you do, right? So it can pick up, if you don't want to give it direct written instructions, it needs to pick up what's going on to know what to do, right? But it's this whole codify is really big
It's very
step,
big, right? And
step, right? And so
yeah,
maybe that needs to be spelled out. What really is codify? What does it mean to codify?
yeah, I think this is where we get into context, complex adaptive systems theory, right? My whole book, right?
Hmm.
There's no way to know, right? I'm codifying things I've never codified before. Like how I want to be perceived when I write. Like I've never written that down. I've never even think of that as a framework. Like how do I even define what characteristics do I want to come out in my written word, right? And how is it different between marketing content versus professional content, right? So I think we're having to codify things that we've never had to codify before, right? And engineering is actually pretty good at it, product and engineering, because we've written specs, we have user stories, we have Jira tickets and everything. We have test plans, like all we actually pretty, even though we don't like to write, we're actually pretty good at it. And but other parts of the business, a lot of them, they don't know how they do what they do. A good example is I had to write a skill, a Claude skill, to codify how I do my business planning, like my annual plan, my monthly, quarterly. So I wrote an entire skill for it. I've used the same framework forever, but I never codified it, right? And so as I was working with the AI, it didn't understand where I was going. And so now by codifying it, I not only have a planning that it can just interject, well, Kathy, you need to do X, Y, and Z, but also it knows what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing based on my business priorities, right? Like how many people write down the framework for how they do it? Most people just write down the checklist, right? So I think we do have to notice the signals. Where is it hard? Where are we saying things? Where are we drifting? The signals are what tell us what we need to codify next. So,
Ali, over to you.
Thank you. I think my question is around the underlying premise that we have a little bit of where it's a departure from what Agile te teaches us. And I don't actually disagree with your thesis at all. I would like to double and triple down on that. But what's and maybe it is from my unique experience because I've only led remote teams. All of our teams have been remote, and because of that, there was a religious emphasis on writing things down because uh, there is a lot of asynchronous communication happening. And even with Agile, we didn't see it as not agile in creating documentation. We saw it as agile in terms of making work visible, building T-shaped individuals by creating the capability for other people to do. And the other stance that we took, like the Agile Manifesto, flat out said teams must be co-located, and we said yes, we are co-located on the internet, which means the internet needs to have all of the information about the team. And so we did that, and we did that in our first company, and we exited that company, and we're doing that now. And now everything that we have is data. We're even more religious this time around because we know from the day one, and we're definitely benefiting it from AI. But what I'm curious about is like where other like what are people's opinion? Like how infrequent is that? Like were we doing a better than average job, or was it is it that is it am I missing something?
yeah, so I would say probably 90% of the companies I go in haven't written anything down or haven't written most down. But then again, I get pulled into turnarounds, but I get pulled into enterprise level turnarounds. I worked in $100 million company last year that was a mess, right? I'd say it's more the norm that companies are not writing things down uh, because they perceive it as it will slow me down, right? And so when I said earlier, like uh, the difference between are you the cautionary tale as a company or are you the poster child for who you want to be, right? You just adapted and you pulled in, you built a really good operating system for how you did that, but I'd say most companies don't.
Okay, and I guess I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper on that, and using a reference from civilization. So initially, I would say that we kind of built the pantheon of you must document everything, but then afterwards, when we brought in a senior agilist to lead the agile effort within our team, I would say that we became fully on board into the religion. Every single thing was being documented, and every process was seen as that. And so I would uh, is that also a rare mindset among the agile community?
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare, although people are seeing that now they need to do that, right? It's pretty rare. I mean, why did Agile come to be anyways? Because we needed to move faster, right? So talking to each other helped us move faster than what was before that, right? And plus we had bifurcated the role. Like pre-Agile, there was not a product manager. Product manager was not a thing. Engineers did product, right? And then we bifurcated the role. And now we had to say, hey, you two, you should talk to each other so we can move faster, right? Now we're at another inflection point. And what's the new inflection point? Well, it's no longer two people talking to each other, it's a human to a computer. And oh, we don't have 3 weeks or 3 months, we have 3 hours or 3 minutes to do it, right? So that the compression time is causing us to rethink what's the next inflection point, right? And so, in a way, we're almost moving a little back toward these skills of codifying things to be able to help it go forward. So, yeah. But
I,
I'd say, you're pretty rare.
Kathy, do you have 5 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, we're going to make an exception today and keep this going. I have a question too. Um,
Which
Thank you everyone for joining. And if you need to hop off, please feel free. I know we're going over time. Um, Next questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to jump in one.
yep.
Go
Sorry.
for it.
Okay, so getting a little academic here, but Clayton Christensen, I think his Innovator's Dilemma, and I know Ali, one of his books is yours favorite too. We had this thinking around there are people that a company starts with, we start doing things, we build processes, and then when we can't even scale processes, we come up with values. And as long as you make new processes that follow. And I feel like when you say, okay, let's go and codify what's in people's heads and about writing, I feel like one of the things that LLMs did was make that part so you can just talk to it and it can organize your thoughts. So perhaps so I'm trying to form a question out of this, but does the triangle of people, processes, values now become a square in your mind? And does every human start talking to an AI version of themselves where they're codifying their thinking as they create those processes, etc.? Um,
Well, I don't think human to human interaction goes away. For example, the project service design project I did, all I did was get on calls and talk to stakeholders, right? But I recorded them and post-process the transcript, right? So how do we bring AI
so
into?
then your writing part, sorry, is not as important as just the human to human interaction, then capturing that
Well, the
in terms.
writing part of it is how should it be captured, synthesized, and communicated, right? If I'm not a good writer, I can't produce the output in a structured way that the computer needs to actually code from, right? So while I might be talking or processing, I might even push the button on my AI to talk to it instead of writing, but still I have to know how to structure written words. Even if the AI is creating it through interaction with me, I have to know if it's good or bad. I have to know if it's right or wrong, if it's drifting off or staying true, right? And so being really opinionated about how does the document come out the other side and what should it look like and what does complete high quality look like? That's the true skill of that human to AI interaction, right? Even if it's writing it. I wrote a PDF in like 5 minutes earlier, 2-page PDF, fully designed in Claude. It got it all right, but it didn't get it right because of my one prompt. It got it right because all the frameworks and the interactions before it, right? But that would have taken me 5 hours or 3 hours instead of 5 minutes before.
This conversation can really continue. So, any last questions for the last minute? That we've gone 5 minutes over time. If not, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kathy, for walking us through your thinking, and everyone else for joining on the questions.
Absolutely.